friend, and welcome to Picast 2.4 with Anne-Marie and Peter.
Hello!
Hello! We've got some nudes.
Yes, there's been a lot of Strange New Worlds teasers dropping. One for every character so far, pretty much. There's only a couple left, I think. Still no word on whether we'll be able to watch it in the UK yet, though. So it's all a massive tease, really, with potentially no outcome. If you look at the details, it says, streaming on Paramount Plus in the United States and Canada and stuff, but nothing has been announced for Europe and Britain. Like, thanks for that, then. Never mind. So I'm trying not to get too excited about it all in case we have to wait until it comes out on DVD. But I mean, the trailers certainly make it look promising, it has to be said. So we shall see.
I'm actually not watching the trailers because, in case we can't watch it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just sort of...
Yeah, no, it looks promising. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough.
Tonight's episode is The Watcher.
Yeah.
Fascinating. You moved 15 beads on the abacus. You chose the 15th volume of the Britannica and a Pinot Noir, 1915. Agnes, I think that your marvelous mind is trying to tell us something.
Look at you, Dixon Hill. 15. It must be the other piece of information I took from the Borg Queen's mind.
The last thing you said before I disconnected you, when is the timeline changing?
15 hours?
That's too non-specific.
A date, then.
Did the ship's chronometer ever show precisely when we landed?
The 12th of April, 2024, which, if we're right, would mean...
We have 3 days before the future is changed irrevocably.
So you have Picard, who's calling on comms, and Raffi and Seven go to visit the clinic where Rios was. Agnes is shivering, and Picard isn't, because of course Picard is a synth, so he's not feeling cold. And so he cloaks the ship, because it's a mirror universe, alternate universe thing ship, so it has that now, or something.
Yes, because they're minis, so they have mini equipment.
Oh, yeah, right. Anyway. And then you have a flash of a little French boy calling his mum, but she's English. And apparently the Picards went to England to escape the Nazis. Is that supposed to explain his English accent or something? I don't
That was
know.
after he was way before he was born. So, yeah.
I lost the plot on this one.
Yeah.
I don't really understand what it was about, to be honest with you.
It's this ongoing teasy thing. There's something about his mom. Yeah. Picard has maman issues.
Yeah. And then Agnes is sort of trying to remember stuff, and she's looking around. She's chosen the 15th book or something with 950. So there's got to be something about the significance of 15. And today's the 12th, so it must be that there's only 3 days before the future is changed. And that's just like... That's one of those sort of leaps of logic that in real life would turn out to be completely wrong and bollocks.
Yes, I mean, you're self-conscious picking out numbers. That's not a thing, surely. That's just complete...
Bollocks, isn't it?
I would imagine so, but feel free, people who know about these things, to set us right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It seems more magic than it does science, and that's not very Trek, is it?
And then you have Seven and Raffi travelling on a bus, and it's got a punk on it, just like Star Trek 4, except this one apologises and turns the music off.
But it's the same actors in Star
Is
Trek 4.
it?
Yes, Kirk Thatcher, as also seen in Spider-Man: Homecoming, apparently. And he did a voiceover in one of the short treks, Ephraim and Dot. But yes, yeah, nice to have him back, I suppose, for a very short scene.
And I like that you have them holding hands.
Yeah, I'm liking the relationship, which is sort of, it's as much love-hate as McCoy Spock at times, isn't it? But yeah. So I'm liking that we're getting to see some of this now.
Yes. And then you have the Queen saying that Agnes is more than she appears. Yeah, but then I think everybody who knows her knows that, because she comes across as kind of...
Well, we had that whole thing in the first season of her murdering that dude.
Yeah.
Which seemed, completely contrary to the characters we knew it. And then as it turned out, it was something to do with the fact that she was mind melded. But yeah, that was all a bit grey, wasn't it? But
yeah.
So she's obviously got a sort of a dark personality or something that kicks in. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know, but it's just like... I'm just sort of thinking, there's more to you than would appear. And I'm thinking, well, actually, the people who are actually around her already know that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're not telling us anything new.
We're certainly not telling the audience anything new.
No. So then Picard goes to 10 Forward Avenue.
Yeah, this is where we find out where the Forward Avenue bit comes in. Yes.
Yes, and meets ripped Guinan with muscles.
Yeah, I'm glad that's how I've referred to her throughout in my notes as well, ripped Guinan.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Was that like what Whoopi Goldberg looked like under all the robes? Because obviously we never saw her arms. So
no.
Played by Ito Agari. Apologies if I've not pronounced that properly. Who was in one of our favourite films, Logan Lucky.
Was she?
Yeah, she played an FBI agent in it, so it would have been a small role, but...
Oh, okay. Fair enough. But then she doesn't know Picard. And she does know Picard because in the Mark Twain thing...
Well, this has been explained. I think I understand this, but I did have to look at the diagram. Showrunner Terry Maitlis said that this Guinan wouldn't remember Picard because in this alternate timeline, the Next Generation episode Time's Arrow never happened. Because there was no Federation, those events did not play out the same. No previous relationship exists. However, she still liked the travelling to Earth, and as we know, she hung around a bit. So this Guinan is different. But she, of course, can sense something is off, hence all the vomiting. But yes, or put it another way, I think this is the way I got my head around it. Unless our heroes prevent the divergence, then we'll get evil Picard, who of course wouldn't be travelling back in time to save Data, and Time's Arrow isn't ever going to happen. So unless they stop the divergent happening, then Time's Arrow will never happen. And therefore, that's the universe we're in at the moment. Got it?
No.
Or do I have to do a diagram as well?
Yes.
There's the whole Back to the Future thing. I'm going to turn into Christopher Lloyd now. Great Scott, Marty. Well, and this is going to be great podcasting. But okay.
No, you're going to take a picture of this and you're going to put it on the Facebook group. And the Tumblrs.
Okay, this is as far as I remember. So this is the timeline as we knew it, with Time's Arrow happening in the middle there, for those of you watching at home. And then... leave on doing this. And what happens is Picard travels back in time to get Data's head and meets Guinan there. Okay.
Right.
But what we've got instead is an alternate timeline because a divergence has happened. And therefore, from here on inwards, Picard is evil. And therefore won't be getting involved in the sort of adventures that would involve going back in time to save an android's head, so the whole Time's Arrow thing isn't going to happen. So therefore this Guinan won't have seen Picard in the past, so doesn't know who he is.
There's no that bit.
There's no that bit. There's no upper line at the moment because of the divergence.
I can understand now. You're going to have to take a picture of that, but that's how you explained it to me.
There we are. That'll be something to look forward to, folks, on the Facebook page.
But I understand.
Can I draw an
now.
evil Picard? No. Anyway, yes. Might have to zhuzh it up a bit because it looks appalling. But there we are.
It worked for my tiny
Hurrah!
brain.
I explained it. I think it makes sense.
With a picture, I can understand it.
It has to be said that Ito Agari doesn't quite convince us Guinan. I think they've got the voice down well. They've got the cadence and the pauses and stuff. It's partly because she's so ripped. It's partly because she's not wearing a hat. Guinan and hats go together.
Yes.
So, I don't know whether that's because this is evil alternate universe and she's only likely to wear hats if she meets Picard in the past. But, yeah. It's a bit weird. It's a bit different to having a goatee, I suppose.
I think what she doesn't have, but again, this could be deliberate because it's a different timeline, is the mannerisms.
Yeah.
So she's got the cadence, but she doesn't move her body in the same way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. But give her a hat and it'd be a lot more like Guinan, I think.
Okay.
Let's think about Guinan. It's his hats.
Hat, gypsy hat.
And then you have them trying to sort of, work out So Raffi and Seven are trying to sort of work out what's happened to Rios, and so they go to the wrong place. They go to is it the LAPD effectively they go to rather than the immigration people?
That's right, yes.
And
Lama God was right. We get a scene in a police station.
yes, he did say, didn't he? He did. And it's just like, no, you've got to go to the detention centre miles and miles away. So they steal a police car, because of course they do, and start driving very erratically, and there's a lot of chasing. And I'm not really a fan. Why is it that Annika, who has never been assimilated, would know how to drive a car? Because in the future they don't have cars, do they?
Okay. Yeah. But I mean, I suppose it's flying a spaceship is completely different to driving a car. But if you've got that level of technological advancement, I guess the car is going to seem a lot simpler. I don't know. But yes, perhaps you should have stalled it straight away.
Well, the thing is, it seems
although it being United States, it's probably an automatic, so she won't have stalled it.
she seemed to put it into gear and use a clutch. And
yeah, when you've got an automatic, there is a go gear basically, but that's it. You don't have to then worry about balancing the clutch and accelerator. That's what United States struggle with if they're not used to driving stick, I believe the expression is.
That just sounds like a euphemism.
It does, doesn't it? And that's a Logan Lucky thing as well.
Yes.
So I think we might be playing out to
Almost Heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads, take me home to the place.
I suppose we could, but it does annoy me. But I think because in the film it's supposed to.
yes, or perhaps there's a better tune from that film we can filch. But anyway,
Possibly. Or the one that's not sung by the child, but the original version of the song. Don't know. Anyway, we can look into that. And so they've got to do lots of driving and there's lots of chasing. And I think at some point you take over, because my notes are just like chasey, drivey. Really.
yeah, they showed a picture of the car they used for this. I hadn't realised this is how they do these things these days. But they were actually in the car. I mean, I assumed like it was blue screen stuff and they weren't actually travelling anywhere. But of course they're being hurled around the car. But then again, you used to Trek actors being able to throw themselves around and stuff. But actually what it is this bizarre custom car with a driving seat on the roof, and there's a stunt driver driving it from the roof of the car. So they're pretending to drive, but they're not actually driving inside, the actors, so they can get on with the acting whilst a stunt driver drives it at the top. It was really cool.
Wow. So do you want to carry on with what happens after
Yes.
the chasey? Oh yes, I should say sorry, because the reason the whole chasey is going on is because Rios, having been in the detention centre, they let the lady out, but because he's got no papers, they're keeping him in, and he's going on this bus to be transported to goodness knows where, and they've got to rescue him before he disappears.
And they refer to him as Crystal Ball, which I
like
quite like. Some sort of stage name. Yeah. I've got a note from your bit that says Af Celt. Can you remember what Af Celt was? I can't remember what it was now.
What?
Af Celt. It was one of your many Star Trek ceremonies, but I can't remember what that was in relation to now. Never mind. I'm sure it couldn't have been important. Oh, that was the time sickness that made Guinan vomit.
All right.
That's Af Celt. Yeah.
Is it?
Yes, apparently. Important that we know that. Sorry. That has to be Jerry Ryan. Looks like she's having fun doing this.
Does, yeah.
She? Far more fun than she ever had on Voyager in those ridiculous costumes. Rios explains who he is to the cop, dropping the story so far. I'm surprised this wasn't at the beginning of an episode, actually.
Yeah.
And as a result, feels like pointless padding here, and ends up on his immigration bus. Agnes asks the Queen to get the transporters working in exchange for some company or something. Is that what the deal was?
I think so, but sort of, but I think it makes sense that the Queen is struggling without the voices of the collective, and Agnes is struggling because she's lonely as well, or needs information or something. So it's kind of like a trade-off, like you can't have me in your collective, but you can have my company, you can have the interaction that you're missing, that you need.
Okay. They beam Raffi and Annika to a spot which they can hijack the immigration bus from. Guinan denies being the Watcher, So Picard gives in and tells her his name, which works in terms of introducing him to the actual Watcher. Basically, she, for some reason, when she hears his name, despite never having met him in this timeline, she then goes, "Oh, right, I'm going to have to introduce you to the actual Watcher." And I was like, okay.
Well, presumably she's been briefed to look out for, because she says...
Oh, maybe.
She says that they've all been briefed for certain people and events, and maybe that's one of the things she's been given.
Ah, right, maybe.
A piece of information that she's been given, that Picard is an important person.
Right.
She doesn't know what he looks like. When he says who he is, she knows, right, we've got to refer you up.
But I like the fact that this was a fake out, so it looked like it was indeed Guinan, as was the logical assumption. But then it turns out it wasn't Guinan. I think that was quite a good move, actually. We have a freaky blank-eyeballed child turning up to escort him, wearing a dress printed with a butterfly pattern. There's loads of butterfly pictures in the doctor's surgery as well, and every so often somebody says something about butterflies.
Well, isn't it the butterfly effect?
Yes, that's presumably what they're getting at, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Mm. The blank eyes swap from person to person until Picard is guided to the actual Watcher, who turns out to be... and not Romulan Laris, who then disappears with him in pretty much an actual puff of smoke.
Yeah.
Bizarre. Cut to Q, wearing a Europa Project jacket, talking about doubt and seemingly losing his powers. He clicks his fingers and nothing happens. There's some business about a woman reading a book, which isn't immediately obvious.
No.
She's presumably something to do with the variants. She's reading a Dixon Hill book.
Okay.
Yeah, by Tracy Torm, who in Next Generation fiction wrote the novels, but in real life was a writer on the series.
Yeah.
And if you want to know who this woman is, if you search on Memory Alpha, mind you, this recording will be coming out after the next episode, so I guess people will probably know by then anyway. But anyway, I stupidly looked it up in Memory Alpha. I thought it was this young woman that's, because they described the plot. So I clicked on it, and then it basically gives you a spoiler. So I was like, oh, wish I hadn't done that. Never mind. But if you really can't cope with without knowing, and you haven't seen the latest episode, or the latest episode hasn't given it away, then you might want to look. I don't know. But yeah, that's our episode basically. Thoughts?
Padding.
Yeah, it did feel very padding. I mean, how do you pad out an episode? You have a long car chase. I mean, it was a well done car chase. Don't get me wrong, and the characters are having fun, but all the Rios stuff talking about the story so far was almighty bit of padding.
Yep.
I'm not buying that this is the same guy then, really. It's partly the hat, but
I think as well as I think, why would she be ripped? The normal Guinan wasn't.
Well, maybe she was, because we never saw her arms. That's the thing. She could be incredibly ripped. I mean, we know that Whoopi Goldberg isn't particularly, but
No, I suppose it just. I think I get that maybe this is a divergent Guinan and is not supposed to be the same.
Yeah.
That I can buy, but otherwise I have difficulty believing that that's Guinan.
Yeah. Mm. I mean, there was an awful lot grumbling online and sort of reflecting what you were saying about that. Hang on a minute, Guinan should know who he is, but they have to explain it. But they have to explain it in a press release, effectively, rather than explaining it in the show itself. I mean, maybe they will.
Might do.
But that this was bound to happen. People were going to say, hang on a minute, until they try and get your head around the explanation.
And then you get drawn a picture.
And then you get, not everybody has me on hand to draw such brilliant pictures. Really
it worked! Don't knock it, it worked!
It really is something to look forward to, seeing this picture first. I've even done an evil Picard. I hope you like that.
Wow. And the thing is, what you actually says is G-Thab.
No, that's Guinan hat.
Oh, and hat.
You see, that's the reality where Guinan has a hat, and that's the reality where Guinan has no hat. The evil universe.
Right, but
the evil Picard.
The way you cross your T's, it makes it look like a B, and that looks like Thab, G-Thab, G-No-Hab, Pick, Ebic.
Look, if I realised this was going to be some sort of criticism of my impeccable handwriting...
And then a picture of my granddad.
Your granddad's Patrick Stewart? I did not know that. Wow. Awesome. I'm married into Hollywood royalty.
Oh, dear. No, I mean, the point is, I understood it.
Yeah.
When you drew it, I understood it. And I just think it would be amusing to have that on the Facebook group.
Okay. Well, that's what we thought. It was kind of meh, really. I
Yeah.
think, again, which unfortunately followed on from a meh episode. You know, it's not bad.
No, I wouldn't say it was bad.
It's watchable. It's just
not brilliant.
You kind of feel like they're stretching this out.
Yeah.
We've got to fill 10 episodes because we sold 10 episodes to Amazon.
Yeah, it feels that way to me.
But we've only got 5 episodes worth of plot. That's my suspicion. But
yeah. I mean, it might be that they've got maybe, say, 6 or 7.
And they better not do that thing which some series do, where they stretch it out, and then the final episode, they suddenly pack all the plot in.
Oh, and that just annoys me.
Yeah.
Yes. The, which season was it? The second, I think it was, of Discovery did that. Masses. There was a padding episode, wasn't there? And then it was all then packed into the last 2. Yeah. No likey. Wrong pacing. And we've heard from Robert, who writes, in this episode we bridge the real world and past tenses 2024 in an obvious but all too logical way by having ICE deported undocumented Hispanic Americans to sanctuary districts. It's not just the episode that turned out to be prophetic, but all the Trump references in your podcast about it. Still not seen Dax's chicken hat in the wild, though. Anyway,
Dax's chicken hat?
Didn't she have a terrible hat? I don't know. We're going to have to Google Dax's chicken hat in a minute.
Dax, as in Jadzia?
Yeah, Jadzia. Didn't she have a terrible hat that looked like a dead chicken or something? I don't know. Maybe we called it a chicken hat in our podcast on Deep Space Nine, and it's been so long ago we can't remember.
Yeah, wow, okay. Tell us more, Robert, about Dax's chicken hat. We really can't remember.
No. Anyway, Seven and Raffi get into a police chase trying to rescue Rios from ICE with some spectacularly terrible driving by Seven along the way, and end up puzzling the officers by beaming away. Which brings us neatly onto Jurati and her ongoing battle of wills with the Borg Queen. It's becoming clear that not quite assimilation has left some queen in Jurati and possibly vice versa. She's definitely more ruthless, this time promising a part of her brain to the Queen, but after she's helped her with the transporter, revealing that she's back in the secure partition. Last but not least, Picard and the titular Watcher, who everyone expected to be Guinan, and sure enough she's there but not the actual Watcher. I'm not sure whether I should say full marks for misdirection here because she was so obviously being set up to be the Watcher that it would have been almost more surprising if she actually had been. She's getting ready to leave because she's disillusioned with the state of the Earth and who can blame her, and only relents when Picard throws caution to the wind and gives her his name. After some body swap shenanigans, the word Watcher turns out to be Laris? I did not see that one coming. OK, full marks for misdirection it is.
Yeah.
Has she always been a Watcher, or is it just the Watcher, whatever it actually is, taking a form that Picard will trust? I guess we'll find out. Or maybe she's only a Watcher in this universe. Or something. I don't know. I'm quite confused.
Yeah.
Thank you!
Thank you all. We've also heard from Jeff Hyman. I'm starting to think that with the reckless bull in a china shop approach to time travel, our intrepid crew may end up being the cause of the very divergence they've come to prevent. If nothing else, you can't really say the episode was boring. This is true.
Yeah.
I'm a little annoyed that we still don't really know who the titular Watcher is. It sure looked like Laris, but that wouldn't make any sense. Well, she hasn't got pointy ears, for starters. Well, I'm intrigued enough to see where this goes, and it's always a blast following with your podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zara.
And we've heard from Lee. Did he like this?
She said, not at all.
Not at all convinced he would have done. No. I could be wrong.
Hello, chaps. It's Lee again. Hi. Episode 4 of Picard. Well, let me just take back everything I was saying about Rios's thing being any fun. As it turns out, he's just going to sit in a cage, and he's going to be the same as 7 of 9 standing on the roof of a building going, this is bad. That's the plot. I'm going to point to the things and say these are bad. Things are bad. Yeah, the whole reveal of Guinan still being in this pub, while it was nice in terms of kind of like, okay, that's a callback to episode 1. I'm at the point where I just don't care, because I'm sitting there going, well, hold on, time's arrow. She doesn't remember. This Elorian, which has kind of vaguely been defined as a creature that can see different time streams and all this kind of thing, has gone from, optimistic alien with Mark Twain to, right, I'm off. Sod you lot, I'm out of here. And the reason being is because, another issue. Bosh, racism. Okay, cool. Again, this is going back to what I was saying last week. At least this kind of is folded in. This is an issue where they turn around and go, well, you know what? 300-400 years of that shit, and you probably will have had enough. I get it, absolutely, bang on. And it stands in stark contrast to all the other things that went in the last couple of episodes of, look at that over there, eco disaster, look at that over there, inequality of people not having places to live. The Voyage home continues. The Voyage home 0.5 upgrade continues with the punk on the bus, and I have to say, one of the most boring car chases I think ever committed to film. It was the actual motor vehicle equivalent of the very long Father Ted milk float chase scene, which was also then redone as a homage in Last Jedi. 2.5 hours of spaceships just trundling through space very slowly. Yeah, it's very boring, very slow. Didn't really do much and didn't really add much, except for the fact we wanted to have some action in this show. The Girardi thing with the Borg Queen, again, last week I thought was really good, and now we're getting into nobody understands you like I do. Ooh, you and I, we're very similar kind of people. Naff villain dialogue. Pretty much the Borg Queen should just be stroking a cat at this point and just going, Mr. Bond, we are not so different, you and I. Yeah, it's a fairly dull episode. The final twist at the end with, I can't remember her name, the Romulan lady being the Watcher. I mean, okay. I looked at it and I just went, yeah, okay, alright. Now what? And that's the problem. I feel like this is the scriptwriters and the directors are sitting there going, look what's happening, and I'm just sitting there going, okay, fine. I mean, Q clicking his fingers and nothing happening. All these little things. It's just. They should be bigger. They should be making me feel like there's something actually of importance happening here. But all I see is just post-it notes. It's almost like I'm like one of those guys who's in the Matrix who can see the code actually being a lady in a red dress, and that's a person eating a hot dog. I'm just sitting here watching this going, and that's a post-it note with a piece of string coming out of it saying Q can't do anything. Over here, Rios is trapped in ice. Over here, yes, here's a car chase because we need a car chase. Sticker. It's like the story is almost done like the intro to fucking Grange Hill. It's just like there's a frame of something happening. Here's a frame of something else happening. Here's a frame of something else happening, and then finally it goes do 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 do, and then we're on to the next thing. I mean, I'm going to watch the next episode, but I mean, I saw the trailer for the next episode, and it looks like they finally decided to leave Voyage home alone. Voyage home alone. And now they're going to move on to First Contact, but, So, yeah, that's it for me. I will speak to you again soon. Take care. Tatty bye.
I want to see Voyage Home Alone.
Yes!
Where Spock gets left behind or something, I don't know, on the Genesis planet.
Yeah.
Actually, at the end of Star Trek 3, actually should have been Spock sort of waking up from the photon torpedo. You open the lid and go and doing the what's his name? Macaulay Culkin scream face.
Yeah. You're right that the car chase was boring. It actually, when we was watching it just made me think of the not exactly fantastic car chase in Nemesis.
Wow, that is damning. I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, it's not brilliant, but
yeah,
I was just enjoying the Raffi Annika stuff basically, and I wasn't paying much attention to the actual car chase. I mean, I've seen so many car chases now. You do have to go some to make them look interesting. I mean, once you've seen the Blues Brothers, I mean,
Yeah.
That was kind of like, okay, beat that for car chases. Nobody can. Okay, fine.
I kind of like the idea of the Borg Queen stroking a cat. I can totally visualise it, actually. And actually what you're saying about Q clicking his fingers and nothing happens, to me that almost feels like a metaphor for this series so far. You've got Q, but the magic doesn't work.
He's barely been in it, to be fair.
Yeah, but it's like, the magic's gone. The magic's gone from Q. The magic's gone from the show. The magic's gone. It's not the next gen magic isn't there.
Yeah, well, you could argue that the first season wasn't particularly next gen either. I mean, it's always been a different beast.
I suppose, but
with the exception of Nepenthe, which I did feel next gen for obvious reasons.
But I just it does kind of feel like a metaphor that it doesn't. You expect it to work and it doesn't. Now that might change because we're only 4 episodes in, and it might improve and get better.
And that's the other thing. The first episode felt like next gen, didn't it? Because we had things like stuff in the conference room and spatial anomalies and all. It was ticking all the boxes. And I think that's kind of the problem. Is like they lulled us into a false sense of security that we were going to get something that was more next gen. I mean, the bottom line is, you want more next gen, watch Lower Decks. That's far more next gen than Picard's ever going to be, I think.
Yeah. I think for me that at the moment it does feel like it hasn't got the magic, but if that's, I don't know, specific plot points, want a better way of putting it, that have meaning later on, that's fine.
Okay, well, let's find out what the Llama God made of it.
Langaslok, Scotty, Fixia, Tree, Fixi Noi. I love you, Guinan, but we only have 72 hours to save the Earth. Alright, let's get straight to it, shall we? Straight to it. Guinan. Yes, the Al-Orian in the room here, Guinan. Now, I'm sure you will have discussed the potentially massive plot hole of Guinan not recognising Picard, but just to weigh in with my couple of thoughts on it, yes, this is a potential plot hole. However, there is a way around it. Yes, this is a potential plot hole given that they both originally met in Time Zero. At least pretty sure that she will have remembered him from that. I don't actually remember whether he gave her his name, but I'm sure she will have remembered him by person. So she should remember from that. There is a workaround to it, of course. If the timeline diverges at this point, hear me out, if the timeline diverges, then the future that Jean-Luc travelled back in time from in Time Zero won't ever happen. So if the future is indeed changed and is about to change, then Guinan will never have met Picard in the past because he never actually travelled into the past. Now, that all works beautifully and can potentially explain away this massive plot hole. However, it would do if the production team had been able to avoid so many obvious tie-ins to Star Trek 4, like, say, the punk on the bus. And by the way, I'm disappointed, but not surprised that you didn't play out with the music from his Ghetto Blaster at the end of your last episode, as I kind of suggested you should with my feedback, but never mind, I wasn't really expecting that at all. But yes, given the presence of that punk on the bus, the way that he reacts to Seven and Raffi suggests that he remembers being doorpinched by Spock, and if Spock travelled back in time, then the future that Kirk and Spock travelled back from actually happened, and that must be, given the way that the Confederation is, there's no way that there would have been a Kirk and Spock in this divergent timeline, so therefore Kirk and Spock would never have been together to travel back in time for the voyage home, and therefore they would never have met him, and he wouldn't remember being doorpinched. So either Guinan has met Picard before, and the punk remembers Kirk and Spock, or neither of those things happened. We can't have both in this episode. I am sorry, production team of Star Trek Picard. Now, it's a little bit annoying because I did say a couple of feedbacks back that yes, at this moment in this current age of Star Trek, there was a little something from everyone, and Picard especially, in a different way to Lower Decks, but Picard especially is one for continuity freaks and people who know their Star Trek, and so the fact that they've left this glaring little thing sitting right here is really rather disappointing. Now, it's entirely possible that there is something that's going to explain this discrepancy away in future episodes, but right now, knowing their audience, they must know how much this is really going to grate with people, so yeah, it's a surprise that they've done it. On the flip side, while we're talking about Guinan, I do very much appreciate the fact they've actually recast her. That was a very smart decision there, given the rather questionable decision that Disney have been making with the de-aging and computer synthesizing of Mark Hamill in the recent series of The Mandalorian. Yeah, I'm so glad they just got a different actress in, because, you know, there are plenty of people in Hollywood that need jobs, so just cast them if they look a bit the same, please. Thank you. So yeah, I appreciated that, and I like the way that she played that Guinan as someone who has been on Earth for a bit too long and has seen a bit too much. I do, of course, have somewhat mixed feelings about the role that she plays in this episode, and I do agree with Lee entirely on his feedback from your previous episode, in that she says some important and powerful things about the state of the world. And it's probably very important that it's a person of colour that says these things as well, and says them on television. Is it on television? Is it actually being broadcast anywhere in the States? I don't know if it's just streaming, but it's powerful that a person of colour says it anyway. However, as Lee points out, she's just stood there saying stuff. She's saying things that are bad. Yes, they're bad. Yes, I see it bad. Yes, it's bad. But there's no story. We don't see Guinan going through anything. We don't see her suffering. It's just her telling us stuff, and there's no actual story there. And as you know, obviously, I'm not going to disagree with any of the points that she's making, and there are important points that need to be made. That's not what Star Trek should be. Star Trek should be showing us stuff through allegory, and it's not doing that here. And yeah, that's where this episode really falls down. They've kind of forgotten that, yes, well, Star Trek does give messaging. It gives messaging within story. As I say, whilst I cannot disagree with the message, I can disagree with the way that it's delivered, unfortunately. So yeah, so that's a couple of big things about the episode there as well. And also just the fact that Picard begs Guinan not to leave the Earth. Doesn't he know that World War III is coming in a couple of years? Stay, Guinan, stay, to be bombed to oblivion. Yeah, well done. Very kindly there, Picard. You what? So yeah, this episode is both frustrating from a continuity viewpoint and a sort of story viewpoint. And also, yeah, it doesn't really do a lot that wasn't unexpected. Yeah, we get the car chase this episode with the police that I was expecting. Not quite in the same way, because they haven't rescued Rios yet. But there's a car chase, a very low energy, low speed car chase. I mean, they do their best, bless them, with fast editing and low camera angles, but you can tell those cars aren't going more than 20 miles per hour or something through the centre of San Francisco. So yeah, not that exciting. Generally, a very frustrating episode. The best bits of the episode, again, are Jurati and the Borg Queen. They've definitely got an interesting dynamic going there, and I'm liking that. Generally unimpressed by this week's episode, unfortunately. What we really need is a bit more Star Trek and a bit less whatever this is. Sure, there's a bit of a twist at the end, with Laris turning out to be the Watcher, whatever that is. Has she always been a Watcher for Picard? Or is it just this Watcher in a different timeline? Who knows? So yeah, we'll see how this turns out and how contrived it's going to be. But at least it wasn't someone we didn't know, or one of the Next Generation crew or something. And it was a very nice feint, I guess, that Guinan wasn't the Watcher just to contact the Watcher, so that's something. But yeah, I guess we'll see what next week's episode brings. There's still the rest of the series to redeem itself. As ever, I look forward to finding out what everyone else made of this. I hope that everybody's keeping as safe as you possibly can in these times, which is to say, probably not at all, really. Oh well. And until next time, glory to you and your cast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, guys, good point. The punk shouldn't remember being pinched before, because there's no way that was going to happen in the Confederate universe. So, yes, they overlooked that, didn't they? Just for a cheap laugh, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And yes, the stuff between Jurati and the Borg Queen, I think it's good. I do like it. But we do need more Star Trek and less whatever this is. I like that as a phrase. And you know, okay, we don't really understand why the Watcher is Laris / looking like Laris, but at least it wasn't Wesley fucking Crusher.
Yes, there were far worse options that we pontificated upon in the last episode.
Yes, it wasn't one of them.
Disappointingly, it wasn't Cisco, but there we go. It was never going to be.
No. What did Purry make of this?
Hello there. Purry here to talk about the Picard episode Watcher. First, thanks for the well wishes. We are much better recovered now than we were earlier in the week. I think the Picard feedback's managed to sneak nicely in between bouts of being quite ill, so that's handy. Now, I actually had a thought, and I was thinking based on actually some last week's feedback, just a kind of thought about the formatting of the show. I'm wondering if we'd have been better with this being the third season rather than second. My thinking is that they obviously had to show Nice Starfleet in episode 1. The issue being that Starfleet had been kind of a bit rubbish in the previous season. So they couldn't just go straight to evil Starfleet and we must get old Starfleet back, because you'd be going, do you have to though, or could you maybe tweak it? So they had to kind of try and make it look like, we need Nice Starfleet back as well. And I think with that's kind of caused a bit of a problem, because we then get this episode 1, Nice Starfleet, episode 2, it's gone now, and we've got evil Confederation, and we've now got to fight to get this Nice Starfleet back. And I think if we'd had a season where we got to see Starfleet actually getting to the point, so we got to see them rebuilding Starfleet and making it nicer, only to lose it again, I think that would have maybe worked better. Just a thought for people going in here. Now, this episode had one point which made me laugh out loud, and I'd been warned of it, so it maybe didn't jump out as an absolute surprise, but it was, of course, the return of Kirk Thatcher as a punk ever riding a bus but in a different city. He clearly decided he was going to listen to his live music outside San Francisco, because you get nerve pinched in San Francisco. And yeah, I can see it annoying. I know Lee's got annoyed about that sort of thing before on the look it's the thing from the thing. But it was absolutely blatant. It brought nothing to the plot. It's entirely valid to criticise that appearance of the punk from Star Trek 4, but it made me laugh. And I mean, there's some parts of this I actually did really enjoy. Raffi and Seven as a kind of double act. I actually think they're working really well together. Although I did find the action-packed car chase, I don't know if it's the direction, but it just seemed a bit lackluster. It seemed almost like they were going round like the same set of bollards up and down a street constantly, which they might have been, and I'd have actually played that more for laughs. We've got some more good stuff with Jurati and the Borg Queen. I actually think that's been the strongest part. And Picard meets a young Guinan. I'm going to not get my head around this because Guinan was older than that when she was with Mark Twain, and they don't seem to be acknowledging Time's Arrow, or are they? And again, this is why I'm not maybe going to jump. For all I just said it there, I'm not going to jump in and say they're not acknowledging Time's Arrow because they might be. And I quite like cynical Guinan and the fact that she's going to have to find stuff out. I hope Picard isn't destined. I actually hope the reason why she reacted to his name was it jogged a memory, because I can understand you forgetting someone after a couple of 100 years. That Picard's a memorable bloke, but not that memorable, and she only met him for a few hours. So I could absolutely believe that she'd forgotten about him, and then she heard the name and went, "Oh God, this guy." Now I'm wondering though, is the Watcher Laris, or is it that he's accidentally run into a deep cover Romulan agent on Earth in the past? Because Romulans do live a long time. Are we going to get more revelations about Laris here? We don't know. The timeline's all wibbly wobbly and squiffy anyway. The last thing is, the messages haven't been subtle here at all. It's not bothering me. Particularly again, it's good that they are just going straight out and saying screw ice. I'd say the downside of the messages being subtle is if you talk to people on Twitter, apparently some people miss the fact that Star Trek has done politics in the past. Believe it or not, there are some people who thought Let That Be Your Last Battlefield was just about two guys with different coloured white faces, and it meant absolutely nothing in relation to anything in the real world. So I think at the moment they're bringing out the hammer because apparently no one's learned anything. Star Trek 4 was too subtle for them. But it's beginning to move. I do feel I think there's too much going on at the moment. I think we've got because we've got like 4 different plot threads running. I think we're only getting little snippets of each of them, and I think it's meaning the plot seems like it's taking a long time. I don't know if any of them could have been excised though. I just wonder if there was a better way to do this. So it's still okay. I'm still having fun. Just this has been a bit of a sag. But all that remains me to say is do keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast, and I'll be back to feedback to the next one. But until then, bye for now.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, it could be that they are using a hammer because you've got the Star Trek fans that are saying, "Oh, it never used to do politics." But the reason they think it never used to do politics is they were children when they watched it. So they only took
They
on...
were looking at the shiny spaceships. And
and they weren't taking on board the message because they weren't viewing it as adults. And had they watched the same episodes as adults, they would take in the deep... arguably, when you fold it into a story, actually you take on board some of the meanings without necessarily consciously knowing that that's what you're doing, which is a good thing. But maybe that's why they've kind of brought the hammer out on this one. And yes, maybe it's going to be a double bluff, and Laris is just someone else who's been taken over by the Watcher because she's a Romulan agent, and the Watcher will actually be somebody else again.
Well, this clearly is Laris, except it's not Romulan. So
she's in disguise.
Well, but which is the disguise? Because generally they've not been able to cover up the pointy ears except with wearing hats. So presumably the Laris we know from the beginning of the series and the last series, it therefore was the disguised Watcher with fake pointy ears. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how they explain that one.
Yeah. And it was a lacklustre car chase.
Yeah, nobody liked that car chase. That was all right.
No,
I clearly have very low standards when it comes to car chase.
It may have been the way it was directed. I don't know. I don't know enough about these things. But it did... Yeah, it was a bit lacklustre, I'm afraid. And yeah, maybe we are going to get more revelations about Laris.
And yes, I too would have liked to have seen more of the stuff that happened, season 1.5 effectively.
Yeah.
And I think if they'd started earlier on and given us a bit more, nice shiny Starfleet, it would have been better.
And some nice relationship between Raffi and Annika.
Yeah, I think possibly that's a misstep. But there we go. And then if they'd started earlier on, they wouldn't have had quite so much padding along the road here. But, who's to say what the rest of the season has to bring?
Yeah. So what's the next one called?
It's called Fly Me to the Moon.
Fly me to the moon.
Well, that's going to get our hopes up for a Vic Fontaine appearance, but that's not going to happen either, is it? So. No. Well, there we go. If nothing else, a tune is going to be nice and easy next week, isn't it?
Yes, this week not so sure.
Yes. But until then, take care, cheery bye.
Bye, boy.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River.
The artwork for this podcast was created by Andy Pelastides.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or borgcastammo. #Borgcast.
All my memories gather round her, miner's lady, stranger to blue water, dark and dusty, painted on the sky, misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye, country roads, take me home to the place I belong.
Shut it down! And now the sound of John Denver being strangled.
You came on my pillow.
Thank you.